Hello, hello. So welcome to uh, Starlink launch 10-2. So today, me and Jonathan are going to be covering it, and then we're going to go through a few space photos as well. Our photographer, John, down at Starbase, took a bunch of photos, and we're going to take a look at those too. But yeah, first we're going to watch the launch. So the booster today, booster 1070, this will be its 11th flight. It's had a flawless record so far, same as basically every other Falcon 9 booster. But yeah, most of its flights have been Starlink, but it has done a crewed launch before. Its first flight was Crew 6. And yeah, it's coming up on its 11th flight now. And it's always incredible to think like uh, Falcon 9, whenever they were first recovering it, it was only supposed to land and be reused 10 times. And now the majority of the fleet at this point is coming up on over 10. And of course, they're still bringing new boosters online all the time. So it's the fleet's growing and it's growing fast, and they just they just keep bringing them back. But yeah, so this launch is going to be Starlink Group 10-2. So that means it's in shell number 10, and this is the second flight of it. The first flight was actually earlier this month back on the 7th for shell 10. So this is basically a brand new shell for SpaceX. Group 9, Starlink shell Group 9 also just started. Its first launch was actually the last launch of the Falcon 9. So it's pretty cool to see SpaceX building out even more shells. And you can see that this booster has launched the 60th launch for Shell 6, the 53rd for Shell 6. So they've put a lot of satellites into other shells, and now they're starting to build out even more. And all that a shell really is basically just a different orbit. So they'll be a little lower or a little higher, depending on what SpaceX needs and how crowded the orbit is. Because with 60 satellites per launch and 60 launches, well, originally 60, now it's down to about 20 because the V2 minis, it's it can get a little crowded. So they do want to try and keep it at a manageable level. So they'll try and break up the shells as well. So that's why they're opening up shells 9 and 10 now. So yeah, the last flight for this booster was Shell 6, or was for Shell 6, and it was the 60th flight. And yeah, also thank you to Rykllan for the amazing infographics. Feel free to check them out on Twitter, or X, sorry. But yeah, so let's watch the Starlink launch now.
Yeah, SpaceX is already live as well, so we're going to switch to their views in a second. And yeah, let's hope we see a flawless mission.
All right, let's check that out. This one is launching over here in Florida, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah. So this one's launching over here in Florida, so not too far away. It'll be launching from Slick 40. And if you're curious to find more information, you should definitely check out whataboutit.space. That's our website. We've got all sorts of launch information, as well as our multi-stream news and galleries where you can find all sorts of fun photos like the ones we're going to be going over today. But yeah, so this is one of the features we have. So you can see here it looks like they might have pushed the launch back a little bit, if this is correct. Let me reload it just to double check.
It might have actually been that their
yeah,
website wasn't
okay.
fully
It was just a
reloaded
quick
streaming software.
It was just a quick
fix
a
that
quick
quick.
glitch because I hadn't been
Yeah,
on the
but
website.
that's just an hour end here.
Yeah, so that was just
Yeah, we
because
are
I
still
hadn't
go
pulled up
to
the
do for
website.
launch in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the
launch
weather
in
is about
minus 3
50%
minutes.
favorable right now,
Oh, I just realized y'all can't see
and
my
I'm fairly sure
screen.
we're at the beginning. Yeah, I'm fairly sure we're at the beginning of the window right now.
But if you go to our website, you can get a lot more information on the launch, such as where it's launching from, the exact time, as well as things like the infographic I showed before. So yeah, you should definitely check that out. All right, let's watch the launch. Oh, where'd you go? And I seem to have lost my co-host at T minus like 1 minute. All right, and he's back. Okay. All right, so we're T minus 2 minutes away right now. Everything seems to be going good. Of course, you can also see our live cam views over at Starbase. We'll be talking about those just after the launch. So be sure to stick around for after the launch so we can tell you all a few interesting things that have happened at Starbase. So you can kind of already see a bit. I mean, last I checked, boosters are a little taller than the one that's currently on the stand. So we'll definitely be talking about that. Yeah. And maybe it got chopped in half. Who knows? Yeah. Yep. So we're at T minus a minute 15. And you can also see, so SpaceX has basically gotten everything perfect for reusing the fairings as well. You can pretty clearly see they're a little charred from. Oh, looks like they've switched over.
Yeah, there we just heard the startup
See
call.
the fairings.
And in 5 seconds, we should get the go for launch from the flight director as well.
Go for launch.
There we
Hey,
go.
there it is.
Okay, so we all set for today's launch. Let's hope this
Let's do this.
nice little rocket takes off in one piece.
T-minus 30
I mean,
Right, T minus 30.
Yeah.
All right.
$15 seconds. T-minus 10,
Caleb.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engines full power. And liftoff. Go Starlink, go Falcon.
Let's go. Looks good so far.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Chamber pressures are nominal.
This looks so cool. And the views on the Starlink missions, and generally all Falcon 9 missions got so stable. Thanks to Starlink, of course. So this rocket is kind of contributing to the nice views we have itself with the payloads is launching.
Falcon is supersonic.
Nice. When it does appear, we just lost Nathan there. Let's hope he's back in a second. Probably some internet connection issues. As in, there was MaxQ. Next, we should be looking out for is main engine cutoff of the first stage and then stage separation, of course. And after that, the booster should start the landing action. A bit though, of course. And there we just heard the call for engine chill on the second stage that has started. And that's just needed in case, or not in case, that's just needed when the rocket engine on the second stage starts up. All the lines are pre-chilled, and yeah, they don't get scared, let's say that way, from all the cold liquid fuel that rushes in. Because the fuel that the oxidizers especially that Falcon 9 uses, it's kind of cold. I think it's at like negative 192 Celsius. So yeah, it's kind of cold. So that's why they pre-chill them. Okay, we should have main engine cutoff come up every second now.
Nico. Stage separation confirmed.
Here we go, that looks awesome. Oh, that view on the right, so cool.
Back ignition.
And next up should be fairing separation, and we might even be able to see the fairings fly by on the right cam there. That would be super cool. And there we can see the grid fence deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
So it looks like Nathan is also back, so we can pull him up on stream as well again.
Sorry about that. Just in time for
Yes,
landing, I
again.
guess.
Still sometimes a landing.
Yeah. So there
But
will
these
be
views are amazing
on the
again.
drone ship.
Yeah, they're gonna land on a shortfall of gravitas, as far as I know.
Yes, that is what it appears. So no return to launch site.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fairly sure the payload on those Starlink V2 mini satellites is just too heavy.
Yeah.
So they could like reasonably do a return to launch site. Because the problem with return to launch site is that they basically need to cancel out the horizontal velocity the booster already built up, and that needs some fuel. So they'll have less fuel to actually push the. They'll actually have less fuel to put the booster into orbit. Not booster, the payload. Yeah. So if the payload is a bit heavier, they can't really afford to do a return to launch site. That's why we usually see the drone ship landings.
Yeah, it's a balance. The rocket equation is difficult, but they've managed to make it work somehow. It's still crazy.
Yeah. It definitely is.
I mean, they've made it look routine, but they're the only ones that can do it and are doing it. The closest right now is basically Rocket Lab, and they're using parachutes for it. So nobody is even attempting propulsive landing other than Blue Origin with their suborbital rocket. So I guess whenever it comes to orbital rockets, I should say nobody else is doing this.
Yeah, so next event we should be looking at is about in a minute. That's going to be entry burn startup on the first stage, so the booster. Yeah, that's going to be 6 minutes and 9 seconds.
And yeah, the entry burn is we don't see that on Starship now because SpaceX just doesn't want to do it, I guess, and they don't need to apparently. But for Falcon 9, the entry burn essentially acts to slow the booster down partly, but also essentially as a heat shield for re-entry, because the exhaust. Just heard the call out for a nominal trajectory. But yeah, the entry burn basically provides a heat shield for landing from the booster. It uses the exhaust gases as a shield, and it's also what makes the booster look so sooty. All right, entry burn has started. For entry burn, they will also use 3 engines.
Burn looks quite
most
nice.
of the time. So that's why you get that diagonal or not that kind of like straight line looking plume.
Stage 1
Pretty
entry
interesting.
burn shutdown.
Beautiful.
Okay, there goes the entry burn. Yeah. And the
It looks
cool thing you can see is that you can see like the booster leans a bit more to the side now, and that's basically just the booster using its surface to as like not really a wing, but like kind of a wing. So it uses it to like steer a bit more to the drone ship and get a bit more lift to just use its speed and to yeah get a bit further out to the drone ship.
It's a flying pencil.
Basically, yeah.
Or a dart.
And the pencil
I
are
guess.
quite good at flying.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of think of it more as a dart because the darts can curve just a bit. Oh, looks like we lost telemetry on the, or not telemetry, but there we go.
That's back. Yeah, we definitely seen like in the beginning it's just been usual that we lose video by landing, but like since Starlink it's just it's weird if we don't have video. So
Yeah.
crazy.
We've been spoiled a little bit.
Just a tiny bit though, right?
Yeah, I mean somehow we were able to get views through the re-entry of Starship, but
Yeah, that was insane. Yeah, so the landing burn should come out in every second now, and they're just going to use one engine, the center one, for that.
Stage 2 is internal guidance.
There we go.
Stage 1 landing burn.
and there we go.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Beautiful.
Stage 2.
There we go.
Bullseye landing as per usual. That is,
Definitely.
they make it look routine, but this is extremely difficult what they're doing.
Okay, and we should see the second stage exactly cut off the engine. Then we just saw it. And I think SpaceX is likely going to cut their stream now, as it's just a starting mission. In my opinion, they should just keep the views up a bit longer because, you know, all the views are always amazing. Especially this one right now looks awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to probably switch back over to our Starbase cams. Yeah,
there it is.
Go.
Yep, they just cut the stream. All right, so yeah, we're going to cut back over to Starbase now. Because we have some interesting things to talk about there.
Okay, now let's switch over to Starbase.
All right, there we go. All right.
There we go.
So over at Starbase, we have had some interesting turn of events the past day or two, basically, especially with which you can now see on the launch pad. There is a very small booster. This is actually booster 14.1, which, if you remember correctly, was over at Massey's, but one thing is for sure, it'll definitely be interesting. The current theories basically are around the catch attempt, because just a week or so, or just a week or two ago, they did test the lift points here. And so it's likely that they're bringing it over there essentially to possibly do a drop test. We'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that, because if they are going to drop booster 14 on the arms, that'll definitely be interesting. They might also just gently lower it as a test as well. We'll have to see. But yeah, booster 14.1 is over at the launch site, awaiting further testing. And thanks to our photographer John, though, we were also able to catch a few things that we weren't quite able to see before, while the test booster was so far away at Massey's. But if you look closely, you can actually see that the previous test SpaceX conducted, which essentially used hydraulic rams against these lifting pins, which these lifting pins are, you can see them just here on the booster. They're essentially what is going to be caught by the arms. A lot of people think that it's actually the grid fins, but SpaceX decided to essentially just have a whole separate component to be caught. And so they had to test it to make sure everything worked, and it appears not everything went exactly as planned. The pin is still intact. It didn't snap off. It didn't break. There was no like serious damage, but I mean, okay, there was a bit of serious damage. You can see the weld line split there, and that's because the entire this entire sheet of metal essentially buckled in, which is not exactly what you want for a booster landing, especially if it comes in a little off nominal. Now, I'm assuming during the test they did check it for off nominal situations, and perhaps this buckling was actually them pushing it to the absolute limit. That is possible, so this could be a best case scenario, actually. But yeah, we got to see the booster rolling off to the launch pad, and now we're going to see some hopefully very interesting tests. The current road closure has it set for the 25th. And if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe to the channel because we will be live streaming that then as well. So it'll definitely be very interesting to watch. Now, it could get pushed back depending on what SpaceX decides. They have some backup road closures on the 26th and 27th, if I remember correctly. But right now, the 25th is the current day that they're planning on testing it. So that's a day to look out for, and be sure to keep your eyes out for whenever we go live for that. And yeah, another interesting story. So before I talk about more Starbase news, I do want to bring up some other quick news, and that is Ariane 6. So for those who are unaware, Ariane 6 is Europe's next orbital launch vehicle. And pretty soon it's going to be Europe's only orbital launch vehicle. And that's not because they're reducing vehicles, but because it's because they currently don't have any currently operational. But yeah, Ariane 6 just recently performed its wet dress rehearsal, which is essentially the final test needed before a launch. And now the launch is set for the 6th of, or it's set for the 6th of next month, I believe, was the last information I heard. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that as well. We'll likely be streaming that too. It's definitely going to be a fun launch as well. There's a bunch of fun things to look out for. So yeah, Ariane 6 is on the pad finally, and hopefully after a couple years of delays, we'll finally see it launch. The original plan for Ariane 6 was for it to launch back in 2024, but it did get delayed. But whenever it comes to rockets, a 4-year delay actually isn't horrible. We've seen much worse. I mean, you don't need to look much further than SLS. So 4 years isn't horrible, and I'd say it's fairly on track for rocketry development schedules. But yeah, so we've got 14.1, which is now at the launch pad. And over at the launch pad, we also have some developments with the GSE tanks. So SpaceX decided to make things go a little quicker. They were just going to scrap the shells first. So this, some of you may remember, they scrapped an outer shell a couple days ago. This is actually a second one. So instead of scrapping the tank itself, they decided to just scrap the second outer shell, likely because it's easier to get likely because now they don't need to change the crane attachment. They can just go from one to the other. So it's likely they'll also just go to the third outer shell, and we'll see the LOX tanks basically just gone within probably a week or two. Depending on how fast they want to do it. They'll probably still have a few things to tear down, but the main structures likely aren't going to be lasting too much longer. But yeah, we also have our new crane, which is a very good sign for the progress that the tower is making. So Tower 2 is on its way, and we've got quite literally the other sections are floating again after a quick stop due to some bad weather. But the two sections that are moving from Florida to the Cape, from the Cape to Boca Chica, are back on their way, so they should be arriving within hopefully a week. But to stack those sections, they need a crane, and so this new crane is basically what they're going to be using. This should be the largest crane that has been at Starbase so far, and I talked about it. We're going to talk about it a bit in the upcoming episode as well, so I'm not going to cover it too much, and we've covered it on the previous episode too, so be sure to check those out. But essentially this is needed because some of the sections are heavier, and there could have also been some scheduling concerns. There's a lot of theories around it, but currently it seems the most likely is that the sections are just heavier. So we'll definitely have to see if there might be other reasons, but yeah, it seems like they just need it for heavier sections. All right, another development was hopefully this was just teams checking it out, but they did open up the paneling for the booster quick disconnect. So they might have needed to make a few repairs on the inside. We'll have to see if they remove any components, and we'll definitely keep you updated for that. But it seemed like, at least initially post-launch, there wasn't basically any damage to the booster quick disconnect. And hopefully that remains the case. We'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that. Of course, we got the chopsticks. So some of these pictures were taken before the B14.1 was moved there, but this is a beautiful picture to show the actual launch rails. So these are what is going to catch the booster, and this is also likely the rail that's going to hook up to B14.1. You can kind of see here, there's like essentially a curve, and that's supposed to catch those hooks that is on the booster. So we'll likely be seeing SpaceX testing these against the booster, and these are also equipped with some shock absorbers. We got to see those tested about a week ago, and we'll likely be seeing those tested again when booster 14.1 is hooked up. So look forward to that. Of course, we got the beautiful paint on the parking garage. So the parking garage is coming along nicely. I do really like this parking garage, honestly, just because it's going to clear up a lot of space for SpaceX. And you can see here, they just use so much space for parking, and now they'll be able to just basically move a lot of that into an area that's not going to take up as much space, and they'll be able to use that for other things like ships or boosters, so they won't have to scrap them. RIP Booster 4. Yeah. So another thing our photographer was able to catch is some military people checking out Starbase. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly which branch these are for, but the military has a lot of vested interest in Starship, especially. So it's not too uncommon to occasionally see some military people checking out essentially what they're likely going to be investing in soon. And actually, they already have put a bit of money into Starship development to help with the initial concept phase. And if Starship is able to do everything SpaceX wants it to do, then it's very likely we'll see a lot more military interest in the vast capabilities that Starship has. Another thing we saw was the ablative. So it was, for a lot of the pictures, it was kind of hard to tell exactly what the ablative was. Fortunately, our 3D artist Vooper was able to make a pretty good animation to show what it looked like. But now we have, but now that they're getting to more and more sections of it, you can pretty clearly see the difference between the stainless steel and the new ablative layer and the tiles. So it does look to be a similar material to the tiles, but it's fairly different. This ablative is essentially just a backup to the heat tiles. And it'll be used to essentially protect if they lose a heat tile. Yeah. You can also see that it seems SpaceX is avoiding replacing some of the sections of heat tile. We'll have to see if they decide to replace those later, but likely the reasoning is because these new version 2 tiles that they are placing, because they have such unique geometries. For example, for these curved sections, you need them to be a lot more curved, and for the leading edges, you may even need them to be even thicker. Because they need to survive much stronger temperatures, they might not have the version 2 tiles ready for that yet. And they might just fly Ship 30 with some of the V1 tiles and V2 tiles, kind of like a bit of a Frankenstein of a heat shield. Yeah, you can see here some workers working on the tiles themselves. It looks like this one was to prep for the installation of the ablative. But yeah, you can actually see this is along the wing section. And you can actually see here just how much progress SpaceX has made at just shredding the tiles off. There's very few tiles left on the wing. Started replacing tiles too. And another thing you can see back in the background is Ship 31. So this is likely going to be the ship that's flying on flight 6 after flight 5. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out on that. And in our upcoming episode, we actually talk about how there's a possibility they might not be flying Ship 32 or maybe even Ship 31. We'll have to definitely see, and we'll keep you updated on that situation. But essentially, there was an FCC filing that seems to hint at possibly even a Block 2 Starship flying on Flight 7. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, be sure to subscribe and check out that episode when it comes out, because there's a lot of very interesting information updates that we got. Yeah, so this over here is Ship 32. So it does seem likely that Ship 32 will be the one that isn't going to fly, just because it's seen very little work over the past few months, and it seems like it's still a long ways away from being ready for a flight. And they haven't even bothered installing the aft fins yet, and it's been sitting over here in the rocket garden for a while now. But yeah, we'll have to see. If they decide to move it over to the high bay, then they might end up using it. If not, I guess we'll see what happens to it, but it might end up meeting the same fate as Ship 27 or Ship 20, or sorry, not Ship 20, because Ship 20 is right there, Booster 4. But we'll definitely have to see. Hey, thanks for gifting the membership, Coco. Yeah, so over here in the rocket garden, we still got Ship 32 chilling, but we'll have to see what they decide to do with it. Oh. And I believe that's actually the end of our pictures. So I didn't pull up any from Massey's, if you might have noticed, because there's not, now that they've moved Booster 14.1 away from there, there's not really much information. There's not really much interesting information regarding that. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out, or we'll keep an eye out on Massey's if there's anything interesting that comes up. But at least for now, there's not really much to report on, because there's no prototypes and there's not really much new equipment. Of course, there is the Can Crusher V2, but it hasn't seen any work yet. So We'll definitely keep you updated for whenever they decide to stack that new section and whenever we see how tall it actually gets. But yeah, that's the end of our update for now. So if you're interested in keeping up with everything, of course, we do have our live cameras. You can see them down here with Booster 14.1 sitting on the launch pad. So be sure to keep up with those. What? Oh, right. Sorry, I got somebody talking. I got Jonathan talking to me on the back end as well. So, yeah, if you're interested in seeing even more photos as well and videos, be sure to check out Y Plus. So, for those of you who might remember, Y Plus was a project we'd started a bit ago, but had to put on pause for a bit, and we started it back up because we got a bunch of new pictures that we want to show off. So be sure to check out that, and you'll be able to see even more pictures than the ones I showed you today, as well as a bunch of videos. And if you go to check that out, then you'll basically be one of the first people to see them. And if you want to get them even sooner than that, basically as soon as the team here gets them, be sure to become a member or sign up to our Patreon, and you'll be able to get the pictures and videos even sooner than that. But yeah, be sure to check out Y Plus. Check out our live stream. If you're watching on the 24/7 live now, thank you. And if you're watching here, be sure to head over to the 24/7 live stream so you can watch all of the things that are happening at Starbase as they happen. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed today's launch and today's Space Roundup. I'm Nathan once again. So yeah, have a good day, everybody, or night, or whatever time it is for you. I hope you have a good time. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.